Yeah. Hey guys, all right, just before the show starts, I wanted to let you guys know that my fight against cancel culture is still happening. Please go to the description below. There's a link titled Support My Fight Against Cancel Culture. If you want to help my fight, please consider giving a bit of a donation. All the information is in that link. With that being said, enjoy the show. Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to. I almost messed up the name of the show, and it is Tech Tuesday once again with Yanni van der Vaalt or Yanni, and he's there. Is the nice Viking, handsome-looking man to my right, um, as you guys can see. Thank you once again for joining us on a Tech Tuesday. This is a show where we talk about everything tech because I'm a big fan of tech, despite what some of you might think, and I know that in some of the previous episodes I've been kind of opposed to tech, because some of it does worry me. And today that's exactly what we're going to be talking about. One of the aspects of tech that is worrying, apparently not just me, but also some other people. If you haven't seen it yet, please go check out when I discussed the social dilemma with Eleutheria last week. We spoke about social media and the effect of social media on children or kids or adolescents. It was a very good conversation as well. Now I'm going to have the flip side of it. I'm going to talk to a tech person about social media, the social dilemma, the documentary that has scared a few people because it has released some interesting facts, stories, and statistics about what social media has done to us as a species since its inception, and the lies, I put that in quotation marks, that, or manipulation rather, not lies, manipulation that social media has had on us as a species. So Yanni, welcome back. How are you?
Hey Joe, I'm doing good, thank you, and I'm excited. This is an interesting topic because I think from our first stream, I don't know, somewhere in August, we touched briefly on everything tech and social media kind of came up, and we both had interesting views around it, and maybe our views have changed, maybe our views are different. But subsequent to that, we both also watched the social dilemma, and then a lot of conversation started after that, and now we are here.
Yeah. So I think let me first just say hi to some of the guys in the chat. So Reese saying that she was here first. Laura Frey has also joined, saying she's second. Thank you so much for tuning in, guys. Kalpana Sonny, it's nice to see you here again. They're fourth. Reese wants to know if she can get you a cup of coffee. You might want to let her know. Oh, they said acidly.
She,
Uh,
thank you to my wife.
and David Bushoff is joining again. Thank you so much, David, for joining us, saying hello. And Reese trying to be funny. I won't even pop that comment up. Um, all right, so thank you all so much for tuning in and joining us tonight. All right, so I'm gonna come out right out of the bat swinging. All right, so before we went on live, you asked, we spoke about how we discussed this before and what our positions are and stuff like that. So you can try. I know you are a big advocate for tech and everything tech. Obviously, with some exceptions. I still think social media is a huge problem, dude. I'm not gonna lie. If anything, that documentary kind of proved what I was trying to say to you in that previous conversation. That I think the powers that be in terms of social media, like the Facebooks, the Twitter, and all that stuff, they I didn't realize it was so bad. Actually, the documentary it's far worse than I ever imagined. The manipulation of the algorithms, how much information they have on each of us, and I know it's not like, how do I put this? It's not. I think the documentary tried to make it sound like it's not that it's information that they are necessarily keeping for bad intentions. It's just that the algorithm learns about the profile so that it can
Yeah.
feed you information related to things that you like, so it keeps you on the platform more. But in doing that, it's also influencing your opinions, your personality. It's almost like a byproduct, an accidental side effect, if you will, of this algorithm. And I touched with Eleutheria on the effects of children, so we're not going to really get into that. But come on, dude, you have to say that this needs to be fixed.
Oh, sorry, that broke up in the last little second there, Joe.
I was saying that you have to admit that this issue or problem needs to be fixed.
Yeah, I mean, and to that point, I do want to also argue, though, right? So, I mean, we need to separate the technology from the problem, I think, because I think there's a lot of good that has come from a technology that is also used in social media, like the profiling, as you've mentioned, and how it builds that whole persona around you. So, and I agree with you, but I want to take let's take a couple of steps back though. So this problem is not new. We created this problem ourselves. So if you think about it, from a with anything like let's say content reviewers, that's a fairly new role that people do is in reviewing content and whether content is appropriate. It doesn't matter what it is, whether it is for an organization to make sure that internal content is appropriate, or whether it is people reviewing video content and saying that content is inappropriate. Not yes, there is technologies out there that can find out where the line is, but a couple of years ago in my previous life, this is a topic that actually came up internally, even at work, where the risk came out into saying this is right. So here we have, like let's say you are scanning company information for inappropriate emails being sent that might contain pornography. So what is pornography? Is it somebody with a bikini, somebody without a bikini? Is it this? Is it that? So now you go through hordes and hordes and hordes of this type of information for you to make that call, though, right? Now, 2 years down the line, you've been very successful at your job, but now you're also addicted to pornography potentially or something, though, right? So, I mean, that is a governance system that was put in place on top of, like, let's say, email or content being published internally, externally, doesn't really matter. That also created a problem. Now, the same thing goes with, I think, social media is that this problem is not unique for me as to, what it means, especially if you think about like on the Social Dilemma documentary, where the guy that spoke about, I can't remember his name, but he said like his kids will never touch social media or whatever, right? So immediately he made a decision because of the position that he's in. Now there's a smaller amount of people in that position that feels like that is like completely against it now, yet they created this animal for the rest of humanity almost. I mean, how many people is in the world? I mean, or internet users, 2-3 billion people probably. So yeah, I don't know. I think agree. I think we need to have some rules and regulations and governance and things for these in place. But then even back at that, I think it makes it hard as well, because now you overgovern something, and how is that then used? In our first stream, Peter Sawanga actually asked a question, what my thoughts was around a decentralized social media platform. Now, for the guys that don't know what decentralized means that no one person owns it. Very much like how cryptocurrency works, is that there's no bank or central authority that owns it, that governs it, that decides, the future of it. Now, with a decentralized social media platform, you have that same risk. Now, automatically, there's no governance, no nothing in place. And I think in one of our previous streams as well, Joe, you mentioned that people don't want to live in a world where there is no rules and regulations. So you also need that. So it's a very complicated problem in terms of how we're dealing with it. Because for me, where I draw the line about social media, it becomes interesting now, because I like the fact that I can have targeted ads to me. I like the fact that I can know about something if I'm in the vicinity, because otherwise I would not have known about it. And it's because of my behavior, because of all those things. Like let's say I'm shopping for a new tumble dryer, right? Now all of a sudden I'm still shopping around, haven't really found something, but now I'm somewhere in town and Macro is running a special. If I had a targeted ad about that, that might influence my behavior. And I can see how that's bad though, but remember, it's still my decision. I'm in the market to do it. So I'm actually hugely in favor for the algorithm understanding me. But if you really sit and think about it, when we offer up private information, and I know I'm kind of like digressing quite a bit about it, but I mean, we can poke it apart. But I mean, when it comes to private information, a couple of weeks back, you guys spoke about, or was it on the White Noise podcast stream, I think, where they spoke about this new government app that everybody needs to install, and this, social tracking and whatever to let you know if you've been in contact with somebody that might have been exposed to COVID-19. Now, that's all great. Everybody is like hates giving the government our data because we don't want to let the government know, yet we freely let Facebook do that, or YouTube or Twitter or Instagram or whatever it is. So, I mean, now you start dealing with that, is it called social capitalism versus social state? So who owns our data? Who do we give it to? So it's a complicated problem. I don't necessarily want to blame the technology, but I also understand that people aren't in favor of, because the tech companies are the ones saying, don't worry, we'll deal with this problem, right? We'll deal with this problem that we created ourselves. So I don't know, at least the ownership is there. The problem is, how is that data being used and what is it used for? And, for me, my little use case is having targeted ads and having a improved experience when I go shopping, for instance, or something. And that's a great thing. I mean, a reminder if it's my wife's birthday coming up, the stuff that she's got on her wish list, those things magically finding me. I mean, I like that. Don't you like that, Joe?
No, because you're missing something very important. Okay, so again, while that is all nice and fluffy and oh my word, so magical, that's like I was Googling, for a mic, and then I'm on Facebook, and then another Take a Lot ad pops up saying, hey, you might like this. Cool. I get that. But here's the thing. Again, these algorithms are designed to keep you on the platform, to keep you on the phone, on the screen. I mean, look at the in the documentary. There was a couple, I think, or a brother and sister. I can't remember. They were kids, well, maybe in their teens, and they asked them, "How long do you think you stay on your phone or online or whatever?" And the girl said, "Oh, about an hour a day." Meanwhile, it was almost 11 hours or something ridiculous, 8 hours, or I don't know, I can't remember. It was like way more than what she thought it was. And same with the boy. He was like, oh, it was just a few minutes and it was hours. And I think, like, yes, you can argue that the tech is beautiful and it does all these amazing things. But my position is we're losing the human contact. Our
Yeah,
kids
true.
our kids nowadays are on their phones more than ever, in front of a screen. Take away the fact of like the social media aspect of it, where they want to follow, where they want to gain followers and all that stuff. Take that out of the equation. I'm talking about they're on their phones all the time. I mean, Yanni, you and I always often speak about back in the day when we used to, play outside with friends or whatever, or whatever the case may be. Fair enough. You were more of an indoor kid and you enjoyed taking apart computers. So I understand your fascination and love for tech and why you're a defender, but this is why I want to have this conversation with you. I also like tech, but you have to admit that there is a line that we are dangerously getting close to the point of like, where is it? Because one could argue that the reason why the new generation and people are even more on their screens now is because of social media. And that is a problem. Or do you not see the problem in that?
No, I agree with you. I see that there is a problem, because it is this mankind have now created this alternate reality which exists in social media. It also exists in gaming in a way, but let's keep that out the equation. I like gaming, but in from a social media perspective, I understand, because it creates that alternate reality. It creates that world where you are, I mean, popularity, whatever that's there. But the challenge though is, okay, if you look at, I think, with all of these social media platforms, with a lot of it, the plot was lost. Now, for the better in some ways, but I've never really gone and looked why something like MySpace failed. I don't know when MySpace started, but MySpace is probably it probably failed in somewhere like 2010 or something. Facebook killed it definitely. But MySpace was probably, I don't know, at best 10 years old or something there. I don't know if it ever extended into the 90s. But MySpace was like one of the predecessors to Facebook. Now, I don't know if you ever watched The Social Network, I think, the one about
Yeah,
Zuckerberg
I
and
did.
how that started. So,
Yeah.
I mean, at that time, Facebook was compared to when Facebook started, or the Facebook, when that started, that was compared to, like Friendster, MySpace, whatever. But it was also like, oh, we want it to be this, but we don't want it to be that. We want it to be for your way to connect, but we don't want it to be a dating app. But then people started liking it, and people start saying is, why can't I see, like, hey, I think like one part of the movie, like the one guy asked, like, hey, is this girl single? She's in your class. Do you know her? Is she available? Can she date? Whatever. So like, do you know if she has a boyfriend? And then like, the idea popped up of having like a status on Facebook, like what your relationship status is and whether you are available or single or whatever the case may be. So, you know, that's where that started and where that ended today. I can see how it's being used for the wrong, but I mean, we can say the same thing with many other technologies. Or not even just technologies, many other things in life that was designed for one purpose, but it's exploited by using it for another purpose. So where Facebook started to connect people, I think that kind of like got lost now, because it's not just about connecting people. It's now definitely, like you say, starting to target people more, especially like you recall in the Social Dilemma documentary, when it started, they had like that hologram of the boy, and the hologram was like complete, like blue, see-through, or digital looking. And then as they started learning and building his persona, he got dressed, like he had shoes and then jeans and a jacket and his hairdo and whatever. So that's obviously as they started, building his persona. So the
It was the
problem,
worst metaphor for Pinocchio I've ever seen in my life.
why did I say Pinocchio?
No, I'm saying because it started off as like not a real boy, and then
Oh,
as it learned more and more, the algorithm it made it into a real boy. Because towards the end, it's flesh,
yeah, yeah, yeah,
everything.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I mean, there you look, as they start understanding him. Now, obviously, they also sped that up quite a bit, because you don't know how long the time span is, because they changed his view from being interested in a girl to being interested in some random political movement or something that was happening in his neighborhood, or whatever. And he joins this rally and all kind of stuff. So, uh, you see, and I understand, them grabbing his attention and targeting him with certain media. But again, I think that's also, is that really social media's fault? Isn't social media just the platform that now carries that, like ads when you shop for something, because companies are advertising on there, like media, because there's different, not profiles, but not like what you have people and friends. You also now have like companies being the persona that you follow. I follow Microsoft, and I follow Amazon, and I follow Apple and Nokia. So you also have news and all those things following it. So yeah, I understand that there's a problem. For me, though, is I don't know how it gets fixed, though. There was a very good example that came from the movie, which would be interesting to implement. But um, I'm just wondering if we're not losing control out of that. Because if you had more control, would you be happier with that? Would you be happier with what social media knows about you? Like more control in like how you wanted to target you, what you wanted to know about you or
Yes.
not. Like, the right for somebody to forget you. Like, almost like, you
Yes.
don't really have that right with some of the social media platforms. So
Yes. I would prefer like to know like okay, well here's the thing, right? So social media, I think this whole since Mark being in the courts and stuff like that and being under scrutiny for privacy and stuff, it is sold to us that social media has taken a step into making sure that privacy is respected and that they don't share your information with anybody else. It's sacred and all that stuff. Can you trust them? I don't know.
well, no, you
It's
can't trust that at all, because you see it today. Can I tell you why you can't trust that? Because we're talking about different companies here. You are talking about let's say Google. No, let's talk about, you're talking about a browser. Browser is owned by either Google or it's owned by Apple or whoever. If you're using an iPhone, if you're using a Samsung or an Android or something, that browser is exposing, because of the operating system owned by that company, exposing certain information to some of the other applications, whether you have a choice around that or not. Because if you Googled for something using your phone and the next moment you're on Facebook, Facebook will target you with that ad, which in one way for me is fine, because sometimes it reminds me about something special comes up, whatever. But it could, be used probably for various other things. I might not know, because depending on the content that you search for, whatever, because I mean we're talking about targeted ads now, but I don't think it's just ad information that's being shared with Facebook. Underlyingly, if you go and Google for some questionable nonsense, Facebook might learn about that and then start suggesting you other stuff. So maybe, like, let's say you are querying for like some rally, like there was rallies the other day, like for the farmers and all that thing. So people were searching like where to go to. I want to go and be part of that protest or rally or whatever it was. So that information I could share. So all of a sudden now you have more targeted things around that. So I can understand. That is, how you see it as bad. I just think if we had more control over that, wouldn't that be better? Because there's some content that I would not want to see. Maybe like you want to have the ability to augment the model that they build of you, that they train of you. And I don't really think we have that, though, because it's really good what they do, how they learn, whatever, because those models are not just used for social media and whatever. It's used in many other scenarios. Medicine, there's a really cool one that IBM is doing, I think, with their AI called Dr. Watson around breast cancer, and using billions and billions of x-rays of people with breast cancer to try and build a machine learning model that can predict if you have like a small lump, whether that's breast cancer or not. And that potentially not just saves a life, but also saves a woman's, features. So I think there's good that comes from that. But that same model, that same process in terms of data science is now being used to craft an image of you, target you with things, like you say, sell you with something. So, and somebody in the movie made the comment to say that if nothing is free and if something's free, you are the product. And that's it exactly, though, right? Because, I mean, you are the one that's being sold.
Well, here's the thing. Like, they made it very clear in the documentary that, like you just said, we, the consumer, are the product, right? So, because for them, the algorithm doesn't care if you're having a bad day. The algorithm doesn't care about anything about yourself. It only wants you to stay on the screen for as long as possible. Why? Because ads are shown. And every time an ad gets shown, Google, Facebook, Twitter make money.
Yeah,
And while that is obviously the system that is being used by the social media, that's how they make money, fine, fair enough. But that's where the problem also comes in, because now it's not about, like you just said, like your suggestion of like maybe if we had something that allowed us to be a little bit more controlling with what the algorithm can see about us, I think I'd come on board with that. And I mean, for me, I don't know, maybe because I know a bit of marketing and stuff, like I don't really pay attention to ads. I mean, someone commented earlier today, earlier in the stream, Count Vantenkamp saying, can we agree that Neil Milan is the most annoying targeted ad ever? I don't even know why he pops up on my shit, to be honest. Like, I don't, like, he's flipping everywhere. I don't Google
Who's
anything
Neil
about...
Malan? Because he's not in my ads.
We consider
I'm
yourself
just
lucky. Probably the fact that we just said Neil Milan, he'll probably pop up on your YouTube ads in the future. But maybe it's because as a graphic designer, I Google for some stock images. I don't know, and that's related to marketing, so maybe that's why he pops up. I'm just guessing. I don't know why, but my point is this: the thing with algorithms, and I think this is what the documentary was trying to send home to people watching. is that there is almost like they've created a monster by accident. They were trying to do something cool. They were trying to please their clients, their advertisers, so that the companies could make money. And in doing so, there's been some side effects, as we've mentioned already. Okay. So you agree that that is a problem. So let's think about some of the solutions that the documentary gave. There's a few, and one of them I'm sure you're not going to agree with, which is
Me.
which is to completely get rid of social media. What is your opinion on that?
So that's interesting. Let's then just define what that social media is. Name the apps that we're getting rid of.
Okay.
So, I mean, we have, because I mean, social media, when you say social media, what goes through my mind is like, my iPhone screen, and there's like lots of apps on there, but it could be a website as well, like Facebook, Twitter on your PC, whatever. But I mean, we're talking about applications like Facebook, Snapchat, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, TikTok.
YouTube. Yeah.
YouTube. So
If
which
MySpace
ones are we
still
getting rid of?
exists, that one as well. Look, there was a time before social media, right? There was a time before social media
Yeah,
existed.
that was a crap time. No, I'm teasing.
Back in. All right. So that time, it's basically going back to that time when there was no MySpace, there was no Facebook, there was no Twitter, there was no YouTube or any of those programs. So when we say social media, we mean social media, and there's a ton. There's a lot out there. I mean, like the Japanese and Chinese have it way more than we do, that we have access to. And yeah, what's your opinion? What's your opinion
So
on that?
before social media, what did we have? Because you're now
We had
talking
the
about the
internet.
early 2000s, right?
Yeah, we had the internet. We
You're
had
not talking about the early 2000s. So let's exclude MySpace, because who had a MySpace account? You probably had a MySpace account. Yeah.
why
None
do
of
you
us in
make
South
it sound
Africa.
like a bad thing?
Well, you're American.
You
right?
probably
were
had
following
one
the
too. Come
American
on.
way. So you probably needed to have a MySpace account just to, I don't know, be American or something. But
There was a lot of South
so
Africans that had MySpace.
yeah, but they probably married an American then or something. So I don't know. No, I'm teasing. So MySpace is not popular at all. Like when you say MySpace, I think about like a very old telephone. Those telephones that had the numbers, and then you turn the thing like, grrrk, and then it like turns like, that's how old MySpace is.
No, Krista
But
had. See, Krista Zonda. Thank you so much for joining us again. He had MySpace. Now you're gonna tell me, oh, because he's a drummer, that's why he had MySpace. A lot of people had MySpace, Yanni.
okay. So I'm happy for Krista. Just because Krista has a nice beard and a nice mustache, I'll okay with his.
Here's another just to add on to the whole social media definition that we're talking about. Would you include MSN Messenger into that? Because that was before social media, technically.
Yeah. So
WhatsApp.
interesting, and that's why I wanted to say is so when we say social media, we're stepping back to the early 2000s. So the point I wanted to bring up there is what did we use the internet for other than searching for information? Because I think the
Emails.
internet is no longer the information superhighway that it was way back what it is. It's a whole different thing now because of all these over-the-top services that the internet has now just become a carrier, though. So very much like, yes, emails, Messenger, and those type of messaging facilities. Skype was a breakthrough technology at the time because it broke down barriers in terms of firewalls and gateways and routers, and Skype just worked. It was bulletproof. But other than that, what did people do to express themselves? Because a lot of the social media platforms today is an expressive platform, though. You create content, you share content, and I mean, let's not go down that road yet, but blogs, like, blog sites, like people had blogs and whatever that would blog. So like, that's what you had in that era. I didn't blog, but I used MSN because it was a nice way of cheaply and easily in real time communicating with people around the globe.
Yeah, but one could argue that if you want to express yourself on the internet, just make a website, and then put your crap on there. Because a website technically isn't social media. Like
No,
my
true, and that's what
website.
I'm saying. So, no, true. So that's not social media, because social media means something for me. It means that ability or that platform where you can create or share content, where you can participate in some virtual type of event, grouping, subscriber, follower type of thing, where you can like or dislike, comment, engage. Like, kind of like that's the bubble that I put social media into. Because, I mean, take TikTok as an example. TikTok, you can go, I know TikTok is a whole bunch of like karaoke, expressive, whatever, but there's some funny stuff on TikTok as well. Not everybody sings to stuff, but it's a way to express. Doesn't matter what it is, whether it's the karaoke aspect of it. And I know my wife's going to hate me for saying that, but then there's also the people that makes other videos and whatever. But then people comment, you can follow, more people follows. Like, that's content creation for me. That's where social media sits. Twitter is a bit different though. Is Twitter really social media?
Twitter is a cesspool. Okay, let's get that.
Yeah, I
but
agree.
But Twitter, the only, like Twitter, you can still put up videos, you can still put up images. What makes it expressive is opinions. So your tweets are opinions. So you express your opinions.
Okay.
On, to me, it's more of a political platform. If you have a very strong opinion about politics, you'll get people buzzing and tweeting and stuff like that. And that's why like I do differentiate between my social medias, because and it's not that I'm scared. I mean, like, there's a lot of stuff that I tweet I still put on Facebook, but um, it's almost like each, and this isn't like news to anyone, like it's almost like each social media has its own purpose. So like Facebook is like your, where you have your friends and you share information, you connect with old friends or whatever. Instagram is always like, I'm living my best life kind of stuff that you put out there.
Yeah.
Twitter is like your opinions on politics or whatever it might be, subjects or opinions about whatever topic you want to put out there. Maybe not always politics, but even philosophy stuff, economical stuff, stuff like that. TikTok is video. It's basically the Instagram for videos, because also
Or
people,
the Snapchat that never was.
yeah, it's people that are also, so there's a lot of I'm living my best life, but there's also a lot of funny videos, like you said, and there's a lot of repetition in TikTok, and it's very expressive, that app, or good for content and stuff like that. YouTube, big mix of all of them, I think, except for linking up with friends, because that's not really what YouTube is about. So I think YouTube is just a bigger version of Instagram, TikTok, and Twitter put together. And obviously because it's video content, so you can create and become a production and create awesome videos. Um, so yeah, that's in my opinion how or what the social media platforms are. And I think a social media platform is defined by um, if you have a profile, or if you have to make a profile that requires you to gain followers, it's a social media platform. If that makes sense. Because if you think about it, Twitter, YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, and every Snapchat, all of them, MySpace even, you needed to gain a following. You needed to grow your fan base, almost. If I can put it that way.
Although Facebook, you could argue though that Facebook doesn't have to be though.
It doesn't.
Facebook, you could be very selective as to who you make your
You can,
friend
but
and what you put as public.
yes, but Facebook is still social media in the sense of there is that kind of. I mean, I remember when Facebook was still beginning, and everybody was saying like, "Oh, how many friends you got? How many friends? You you only got 20 friends. I've got 100 friends. Look
Yeah.
at me." So that it kind of started that whole
No, I'm not saying Facebook is
momentum.
not social media.
Yeah.
Agree, definitely. I just think we have a level of granularity in Facebook that we
Yes,
don't always use.
that's fair enough. That's a good point. Um, Kyle Green saying, I haven't watched The Social Dilemma on Netflix yet. That's fine. Spoilers, in case. Yeah. Um,
It's an interesting movie, Carl. Sorry,
Yeah.
Joe. It's an interesting movie, Carl. I urge the guys to go and watch it.
It is very good. It is very good.
Because this is the developers, the clever guys, the guys that came up with the stuff. Not quite Zuckerberg, because Zuckerberg is still quite enjoying that wave. But and not that Zuckerberg is the top point of social media, but it's scary though when you see some really senior people in some of these social media, companies take a step back or a couple of step backs and say like, whoa, we created a monster.
Well, that's the thing. And again, yeah, let's bring it back to what we were discussing, which is, a life without, because that's one of the big things that I think was said in the documentary was, and I can see people commenting about Facebook and saying that it's they know how to So Alamoth Cora says they know how to push buttons and control people. So there was a suggestion by a man in the documentary who said we need to just cut social media. We need to get rid of it. I saw Reese say that we can't do that.
Mm-hmm.
That's not. Let me just see what she said about that. She said, "No way, we can't be without social media. There is more good than bad. Only if you know your tech." I think it's all about the person, not the tech. It's Reese.
Okay.
Which you could say that you could. It's all about the person, not the tech. Again, see, here's the thing, right? So social media, right? I don't. It's at the current situation that we're at, and I think this is the how realistic we need to be. I don't think any of the companies are going to change what they're doing because it makes them money.
Unless you implement something. Sorry, go for it.
Unless you implement something, yeah. But this is how they make money, and we could argue if it's right or wrong or whatever. But at the end of the day, they're making money. I think the method in which they're doing it to make money can be tweaked. I'm not saying that the whole system needs to change. I just think that, like we've been discussing, they were doing something. And that's how the guy explains it. He was doing something that he thought was amazing, and then one day he was like, "Oh crap! I'm seeing this side effect. I'm not happy with it," And then he made some noise about it, and it garnered some traction, and people are talking about it. And he's trying to talk about it with the rest of the world, like this is what we need to be careful of, and that's fine. My point is, let's explore the idea of 2020 and beyond without social media. Would that actually fix the problem? I think it's a bit of an extreme solution, if I'm honest.
Would that fix the problem? See, the thing is, though, social media is so integrated in our lives today that life as we know it will be a lot different. So the problem that is there might be gone, or exists far less to how it exists today, because these things will find a way to exist. You've seen it during lockdown. You've seen it during the prohibition era with alcohol sales, etc., etc. So I mean, things will find a way to exist. So, but life as we know it will be a whole lot different, because imagine if we had lockdown. I still think lockdown would be really, really. Not really. Lockdown would have been really more worse, or no, how's the right way of saying it? Would be a lot more worse if we had to experience 2020 lockdown in 2000 or 2005 or somewhere before a lot of these social media platforms. Because what would you do? Like how many people caught up the whole of Netflix during lockdown? Like watched everything that you wanted to watch and whatever other streaming platforms you're using.
Yeah, but you could still...
None of that stuff exists.
No. Netflix is not a social media platform, so therefore it still would exist.
It's not a social media platform, but it does have an algorithm, though. So, I mean, which is why Netflix kind of came up. But, I mean,
we're talking about social media.
What you're saying. Okay, that's fine. Because, I mean, my argument would have just been is that, like, the DVD stores and whatever would have been closed. Anyway, so you can't go and even rent DVDs or anything. So you are stuck with watching whatever is there. So uh, I don't know how much different life will be different.
Life would be different in the sense of like, okay, for me, for example, being a comedian, and this is why I like talking to you about this stuff because you're just a normal person. You're not looking to grow a fan base or anything like that. You're an average working individual. Whereas me as a comedian, I don't want to say I strive, but it gives me joy to know that I have followers and fans and I can communicate with them. So that's a big positive for social media. Like, I love the fact that on YouTube I can communicate with some of the fans in our live chat and on social media. If they comment and give me their opinions, I can engage with my fans almost instantly, which is great. So living without that aspect of it would be an adjustment. But then again, before social media, there are so many famous people that were famous without it. So it's an interesting concept, and the reason why the guy says that we should cut it out is because he thinks that it's manipulating us. The social media is manipulating the people. We've lost sense of reality. Again, with the kids, being on their screens all the time, they're not experiencing real life. They get a warped opinion about what real life is, and everyone starts to be oh, I have to get to 1 million likes, or I have to get to 1 million followers, or my life is over if someone comments on my feed and says that I'm fat. Like it can it's in children. We've seen in the statistics in the documentary, suicide has doubled,
Suicides. Mm.
doubled, more than doubled in with teenagers, which is alarming. And I think for adults, maybe it's a little bit different because, like me and you, we kind of know, okay, cool, I've had enough of social media, I can put it aside for now. But our kids, the next generation, they're the ones that are really going to be affected by what we're seeing in this documentary,
Yeah.
which is why it's causing, or why people are starting to talk about it. So, should we uh, get rid of social media? I'm going to be honest, I think it's a bit too extreme. I like your idea about maybe having a little bit more control with what social media can access about a person. I think that's definitely something that's a bit of a workaround. But I can also understand how a company may not favor that because it's like, well, I want to advertise my skateboards to Joe, but now I don't know if Joe likes skateboards, you know? So it's that whole targeting
Mm.
target market issue there. But again, maybe there should be a different way of advertising to consumers. Um, yeah. So you would say no. Let's not get off social media.
I agree. I wouldn't say no. I wouldn't say reset back to before social media because that would be, I think, that would be too devastating, not just for us as individuals, but I think in general for the economy, for everything. Because a lot of businesses and stuff that's also built around that. There is some good of that. So I agree. I think something else though. Did you pick up in the movie the one guy that said one option that he think should be considered is taxing how the data is used? So taxing the social media platforms around how data is used. Now, um, the problem the problem that he was explaining was that the fact that there is no regulation around digital data privacy when it comes to these companies like the Facebooks, like the whoever's that starts building that persona around you and how that persona is used. So the point he was trying to make was to say is that there's other companies using it. He used a different example, but I mean, if we bring it closer to home, banks have been doing it to us for like since ever. They know your spending patterns, whatever, but there's regulations in place that stops the banks from sharing some of that information around your spending habits to say, hey, because you live closer to a spa and not a Pick and Pay, you would, more likely shop at the spa because it's, right around the corner from your house versus a Pick and Pay that might be a kilometer down the road. So those spending patterns, when you go to restaurants, whatever, the banks have all that information. But I mean, there's regulations for that. Whereas in the social media space, there's absolutely no regulation for that. So one way to deal with that was his suggestion was implementing a taxing structure for it. So how much of that digital data that's being used that you are using to create that revenue, to create that targets, whatever, you should be taxed on that piece for it. Now, I don't know where those taxes go to because it's,
I don't
you
know
know,
enough about taxing to know how that system would work, which is probably why I was just like it went over my head because I was like, I don't know, I don't see that solving the problem.
well, if you have, like, let's say Facebook, like, again, look at and I know I'm referring to the movie again, but they spent X amount of money to have the service that launched the first version of the Facebook and whatever. And then they started expanding to like all the different universities. And as they were expanding, they were hitting server capacity because, as the movie went, they were chasing like 1,000 subscribers, or people signing up or whatever. So as that was growing, so I mean, these companies throw quite a lot of money at the tech that sits behind those, where Facebook sits. It's not just about having uptime and having multiple servers so that there's, never downtime, whatever. There's more. There's massive amounts of compute that sits behind that. So that is why you'll find that some of the bigger companies will be a lot better at that because they're throwing a lot more money at those data science models that is being built, that is, numbers being crunched to build those algorithms to, create that persona of us, for that platform to engage you and pull you more into that platform. So that's the piece that they should tax. The more they use that data, the more they, use that data, that oil, because that's kind of like what their business sits around. The more that gets used, that's how they need to tax about it. It's a very difficult thing to implement probably because it's like me telling you, like, okay, go, cool, Joe, you're a YouTuber, you work from home full time, you're a full-time YouTuber, that's great. But besides anything you get paid from YouTube, you need to pay some extra tax because your PC is using, 50% of your computer is being used through the day. So because every time you use more than 50%, you need to pay a little bit extra tax, as an example. So it's like a very difficult thing to pin down, but it would be a way to regulate that the guys that throws insane amounts of compute at these algorithms to build it is that they actually pay a premium for that because right now they are making free money off us. That's the product.
All right. Well, we saw some other. Look, again, I don't know about the tax thing. I think that's something that would. I don't know. I get nervous when you start including now tax and stuff like that. That's me. I think another solution, because we're almost out of time. So another solution that was touched on in the documentary was allocating. Okay, so I think for the older generation, it's kind of like I said, people in our age bracket were not as consumed with social media. Some are, don't get me wrong. But I think anyone above maybe 35, 40 is not as consumed with social media as, say, a 20-year-old or an 18-year-old or even younger than that. So one of the suggestions was, we need to allocate time. Parents should allocate certain time. Like, for example, when I was growing up, I've mentioned this before, and I wanted to play Nintendo 64, and my parents would be like, no, you can only play once you've finished your homework and you've had dinner and blah, 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 and you get to play for an hour. Treating the new generation like that, you only get screen time for a certain amount of time and stuff like that. And I believe there is tech out there to help moderate that. And Apple has definitely done. I don't know about Android, but Apple has definitely done. I noticed they have an app called Screen Time or something like that, where if you've linked all your screens or like that ecosystem that they have, where you've linked all your devices together, parents can actually see how much screen time their child has been on their phone, which is great. A flippin' awesome way of trying to also control the situation. Um, And that all sounds good, but it doesn't really solve the problem. It's that problem of kids being suicidal and stuff because they're on the screens too much. But it doesn't solve the problem again with the algorithm. Because the more these kids are on the internet, the more the algorithm knows about them, the more it can manipulate or influence them. Now, before we get into that discussion, I just want to bring up something that Reese said earlier, and because I know she's very, she loves social media, obviously. So she mentioned earlier that she wouldn't have survived the lockdown. Yeah, here it is. No way we can't be without social media. There is more good than bad. No, wait, that's not the one. She said something along the lines of she wouldn't have survived the lockdown without social media. I can't find it now, but it was mentioned
Yeah.
earlier. And I disagree with that. I think we would have survived the lockdown without social media. Because again, there would still be Netflix, there would still be Skype, although I don't know if that would be considered social media. But I don't think so.
WhatsApp.
It doesn't operate like
WhatsApp's also not social media.
yeah, it doesn't operate like social media. You don't have followers. You don't have like posts that you can put out. You don't have to build like you know what I mean. It's just hey, do you have Skype? I want to make a phone call quickly. It's another way of communicating with people who are abroad, family that are not close by, and stuff like that. And Google would still exist. The internet would still exist. There would be maybe not YouTube, but like a different form of YouTube where it's not about subscribers, but more about just videos being out. I mean, I think at the beginning when YouTube was first implemented, it wasn't. It was just uploading. There wasn't like, as far as I remember, I could be wrong. But maybe a different version of it where it's just uploading videos and not really about following each other and all that stuff. So the whole argument of but Facebook's helped me reconnect. WhatsApp could have done that. Skype could have done that. The internet could have done that in some way, shape, or form. So that's why I think like it wouldn't have been as enjoyable. I'll level with you on that. But I do think mankind would have survived without social media during the lockdown. That's my opinion.
I think we would have just delayed it because I think your mindset is where my mindset probably isn't, and probably other people watching as well. It's waking up tomorrow all of a sudden and you are cold turkeying from a social media platform perspective. That is the scary thought. But if something didn't exist, you wouldn't miss it though. Kind of like if you think about it that way, it would be different. So then lockdown probably would have been different, but we would have survived. We would have just done other things. So I agree with that because it's not like we were not living 10 years ago is long, but it's not that long. It's not like we weren't living 20 years ago, right? 20 years ago, meeting people was a thing of like going out to a club or something or a phone party or whatever was funky then. And then if there's somebody that you like, then you like, go and do the, can I buy you a drink? Can I do this? All the pickup lines. So a whole lot different than what it is today. That's one example. I'm using dating as an example.
No, but it's a great example, and that's my point.
So,
there was a time when humans existed without social media. Now, yes, it would be difficult. That's why I think that whole idea of we must just cancel social media is a bit extreme because let's be honest, we can't. I mean, like I don't think that is possible unless every single social media company was to just shut its doors and like basically go offline themselves, which we all know is impossible.
It's millions of dollars that will go down.
So
down the drain, but that won't be earned.
Exactly. So, but I mean, in the hypothetical situation, if they did do that, that's the only way we as humans would be able to be like, okay. But then we'd probably create something else that would trump that, which is actually what I want to bring up to you now in our final moments is what about, because this is something they didn't explore in the documentary. What about if someone could create a social media platform and redefine it? So, for example, we know that the algorithm, there's a flaw in the algorithms, the way they present information and push things out to the product or the consumer, right? Which is what this whole thing's about. So what if a new social media platform came out that gave you more control on the information you're willing to put into that social media platform and found a different way to keep advertisers happy? Very
It'd certainly be
hypothetical.
worth a shot. Yeah, it's certainly worth a shot. I would say why not? Because the thing we can agree on though is that there's a problem we need to deal with. The other thing we agree on is that shutting it down is not the answer. And the problem is you're sitting with the top dogs that is like not seeing that this is a problem really. You're seeing individuals working for some of these companies that's crying out. You're seeing us, the product, that is seeing this as a problem. So, I mean, I agree with that because something else that I thought about is, and again, I'm looking at this from a family perspective, children using social media, whatever perspective, is it's easy for a child to sign up to Facebook and whatever. Now, parents help them sometimes, whatever, because they don't understand the extent of what will happen. But what if the social media platform was automatically built in a way whereby you can't subscribe to social media if your parents aren't subscribed to social media, unless you're like, you know, a parent or a adult, which means you have to be part of a family. So
Yeah,
I create
adult supervision almost. That's a good
my
idea.
Facebook family. Now, obviously, me and Reese, we invite each other. If you have kids, your kid starts being invited, whatever. And then there's an element of control that we can define. But I mean, that is one way of looking at it because that'll help you understand also without maybe because I mean in previous streams I agree with it. If you have a kid, I think you have a right to make sure that that kid is safe in any way, shape, or form, whether it's digital, physical, whatever. So you should be able to check their content and make sure that they're not being bullied or questionable discussions with people and whatever. And there's something I want to mention about Telegram. So this would be like a way for you not to go and screen all your kids' messages that's being sent, but at least having control of how the system is treating them. And I'm not saying don't go and screen their messages because there is massive risks in that. The point I wanted to make around Telegram is WhatsApp is the de facto standard when it comes to communications and things now, over the top communications because it's cheap. You can have WhatsApp calls, video calls, voice notes, groups, and whatever. But the one single flaw that WhatsApp has for me is hiding your identity, hiding your number. That you can't be part of something without sharing your number because automatically that exposes you in different ways as well. Pedophiles are using Telegram for that reason now because the identities are being hidden. So now they can start creating groups, luring kids to whatever weird things, and their numbers are being hidden because you can't get their number. So it's not like in Facebook, if I have a pedophile Facebook group, I don't, but if someone does a pedophile Facebook group, let me just fix that, because my number would be exposed. You have Rika, you have all those things. You can go and find out who people are. I mean, it sounds very easy, but I mean, with a bit of rigmarole, you can find out who a number belongs to. In Telegram, you can't. So, because you don't have all the digits. So, again, the good in one thing being used for the bad in something else. Because we wish for that in WhatsApp, yet there's a problem today sitting in Telegram on how that platform is being used for something that's wrong. So, I think the same thing with that. Having a bit of a control or a governance group or something with a family model where kids have to subscribe to that, then they can start using some of these platforms will go a whole lot further, I think, than what it is today, where it's completely unmanaged. And because I mean, in Telegram, and I mean, we're on time. Sorry, Joe. But in the movie, in Social Dilemma, one part we didn't talk about is that part where they were sitting around the kitchen, and the mom and the daughter were sitting and they were watching some ad on the TV, and there was that cookie jar that would like auto lock and whatever, and then they were like, oh, we have one of those, and then the mom was like, yeah, we have one of those, and then they go like back to their social media. But and on the dinner table, the mom took all the devices and she put it into that cookie jar, and then um, the daughter broke it open and whatever. And I mean, the two things I wanted to mention there is that like nowhere do you see even that she was like reprimanded, if that's the right word, for like what you've done. You've broken something, you've broken your brother's phone, you disregarded something from your mother, whatever. Like the respect there from is gone. But then they say to the son, I bet you can't not use your phone for a week. And he gets to like 4 days, and then he sees the phone and he uses it. And nowhere is there that, like, you were so close. Like, 3 more days, you would have made it. Like, it was just okay. It was just okay that he went back to that. Now, the movie probably tried to paint that picture that that's how social media was. I just would have just missed that, because I think you could have addressed this to say, okay, cool, well, you got to 4 days now. Let's see if you can get to 6 days next week or whatever, something like that. I think it would have been different, but
Yeah, I feel
I was
that.
quite sad
Yeah, I feel that
for
those
that
those
part.
two scenes are an example of poor parenting, in my opinion, and that's going to be a whole nother discussion. Because I mentioned when I was watching it with my wife that, like, had I done that, like had I broken a cookie jar, my dad would have lost it. Like, and not in a bad way. Like, I'm not saying that he abused me or anything like that, but the way the scene played out was the father went upstairs after the daughter, and you didn't see him saying, like, how could you do that? That was wrong. You don't just break something. You need
Yeah,
to
there's no
learn.
teaching moment
Yeah,
there.
there's no
There's
teaching
nothing.
moment, my dad would have been like, okay, you defied what all you had to do is wait an hour. You went and you broke something, right? That we now have to pay for again. Uh, you know, and he would have said, now I'm going to take your phone away for a month. You know, there's no punishment with the girl. She was still on her phone afterwards. And that
Yeah.
to me was an unrealistic. Maybe not. Maybe some parents are like that. I don't know. But again, that's a whole nother debate now with parenting and stuff like that. It does play a role. It does play a role in managing screen time with children. But I think, to stay on topic with what we're talking about, is the algorithm and the overall message of Social Dilemma, which is, and the overall message is, and for those of you who might be interested as well, the owners of Facebook, Twitter, or not owners, but the people that used to work in Google, the people that used to work in Facebook and Twitter, and these are big guys that created the monetization stuff and all that, the like buttons.
Yeah.
They don't let their children on social media. Just putting it out there. But besides that, I like the way that the documentary ended, and I think we should probably end it in the same way. The guy that first brought this to the forefront said social media is here to stay. It's not going to go anywhere. And unfortunately, depending on which side you fall on, whether you hate it or you like it, it's here to stay. It's become a part of our society. It's almost impossible to bring it down. So now we need to start looking at the issue that these guys have brought to the forefront and come up with some solutions for a better future for not just us, but our children. And I think your suggestion with the parenting and the the child can only come in if the parents allow it and stuff like that, and maybe a bit more control around what the individual can put out on social media, I think is a good, good start. But I don't know. For those of you who are watching this, we never started this thinking that we're going to come up with some $1 million solution to this. But it was more just discussing the documentary and giving our opinions about it. I think in closing, with with what you said about Telegram, um, surely there's a way around it. I mean, you still give your number to Telegram when you sign up for it. So if you can prove that this person is using it for shady crap, I'm sure there's a law maybe that you can get to what's it called, a warrant, if I can put it that way, and get the person's information and stuff like that, because it must be stored somewhere. Um,
Yeah, no, agreed.
yeah,
Agreed. Your profile exists.
yeah. So I don't know. But yes, it is a problem. That's another problem. So how much privacy do we get? How much privacy are we allowed? That's an interesting conversation to have, and I think it will keep us here for another hour if we had to discuss it. So, in closing, Yanni, give us your opinion of the social dilemma and what you think, or advice for people moving forward with social media.
So I think it was a good movie or documentary. I would urge the people to go and watch that because it does state quite a few hard truths around how some of the things work and how some of those creators responded to the good that they think that they created. Like you said, Joe, the like button. They create the like button to give you a sense of like, saying you like something or not, but all of a sudden the like button turned into something that's used for different reasons and the effect that it had on people. So I think it's scary that you are seeing these people that's got really posh jobs, in my opinion, starting to speak out and saying, hey, there's a real problem developing here. The perception that we have with this problem from our perception is that social media invades my privacy and I don't like targeted ads sometimes, or within relationships it might be an issue because of how people use it. But I think that's a very small part of the problem. I think the bigger part of the problem is what those creators and those developers and the guys that's talking out about it is what they are trying to say. So I think we need to be open to listen to that. I think what's important as well is when it comes to kids and social media, in the previous streams with Eleutheria Zeta and whatever, it was really well discussed in that, as a parent, you have a responsibility with how your child uses social media, uses their devices and whatever. So be more involved in that. And I'm not saying steer away from social media, although, in the movie the guys are saying that, but I'm not quite there yet. I just think that as with anything in life, we need to take certain precautions and we need to make sure that, you take certain ownership of some of these things. And as parents, as adults, whatever, we still need to do that. So that for me should be better than not doing anything at all.
Well
I
said.
think that's where I want to leave that.
And Banner Swindon, thank you so much for tuning in, buddy, says education is the answer, in my opinion. We need to take responsibility in our own hands. No one is going to protect you. And yeah, I can't disagree with that. You know what? Where I come from is, I love tech. I've said this at the beginning of the show. And Yanni, I love tech. But I'm always worried when something gets invented, when something new comes along, who or what is going to use this tech in the wrong way. And as long as, like you said, we can educate ourselves and we can try and find a solution to it, and as I said in the documentary, we need to now address this. As long as that can be addressed, then I'm okay with it. Yeah, I would happily like to see someone come up with a new social media platform that actually delivers on what it promises, and protects everyone. I think would be ideal, but that might be wishful thinking. But yeah, I can't. I think yeah, there's nothing more to say really. So Yanni, thank you so much for having this conversation with me. I really enjoyed it.
Thanks.
Yeah, I love the fact that you stick by your guns and you're always on the side of tech, which is why I like challenging you when it comes to these topics. So
I'll go cry in the corner just now,
no.
Joe. It's fine.
No, I think this was great, man. So thank you all so much for watching. For those of you who are interested, we will be back with Tech Tuesday in 2 weeks from this Tuesday. We will be talking about retro gaming, We're gonna go back in time. When did the first game come out, and how has retro gaming, if at all, affected our lives today? Did it have any influence on the things that we do, the tech that we have? Maybe, maybe not. We'll be exploring that, and we'll be going through some of the best or most interesting world records that gaming has set. So yeah, that will be fun to go through and go down memory lane. So please check that out. Yeah. Other than that, guys, thank you so much for watching. Please subscribe if you're new to my channel. Please give this video a like, and please don't be afraid to share it. That's how my content gets out there. And thank you all so much for watching. Every one of you that gave feedback and gave the comments. You guys are awesome. Thank you all so much. I will be back here tomorrow night with 2 streams. The first stream, I'm actually going to have Yanni's sister on the show. And we're going to be talking about something very interesting in what she does, her line of work, which is advocating against human trafficking and other devious things that the world does. So she's fighting the good fight, and that's what we're going to talk about. And then later on, I'll be with Mikhail Kanaka, Obaking Moreau, and Peter Sawanga, and Werner Weber, and Germ Warfare will be on the show on my Funny You Should Say That episode. We'll be talking about what is the right wing. So yeah, please join me there. And if I don't see you then, stay safe, be kind to one another, and I'll see you at the next one. Cheers. Hey guys, so if you enjoyed the show, please consider giving it a like and a share. Don't forget to subscribe as well if you're new to my channel. And if you really enjoyed the content, feel free to join and become a member. Don't forget about my fight against cancel culture. That's in the link in the description below. Support my fight against cancel culture. Go to that link and all the information is there. Other than that, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for watching.